Hey, what's happening, all you huntsmen and huntswomen out there? I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm coming at you with another Rwby episode review. This time it's Volume 7's Episode 4, titled Pomp and Circumstance. Speaking of which, the new Amity Coliseum flies into view over the Schnee dust mine, the abandoned Schnee dust mine, one of several sites that the Schnee Company owns, and just one that's not really being used at the moment because of the whole situation with, Grimm. But everyone arrives on the scene, namely the Atlas military arrives in order to kind of debrief things for the huntsmen and huntswomen who went in, namely the Ace Operatives, Team Rwby, Team Junior that I found out. That's how John's team is called now, which, I don't know how I feel about that. And Crow. So everyone arrives. The Ace Operatives come marching out like bosses. Well, with Crow, but it's just like they're professionals. But the teams are very impressed, namely John, Nora, and Rwby, all for different reasons. John is very impressed by how much of a organized machine, well oiled machine, Jesus, a well oiled machine Clover and his ace operatives are. How well they work together, not really needing to dwell on a plan or a thought, they just act and immediately seem to know what they need to do. Nora, on the other hand, is very interested in Elm and her mighty hammer and wants to form a team up of Team Thunder Thighs, which, Nora, you definitely do not know what that means. You really do not know what that means. Meanwhile, Rwby finds that, just being so well working with friends is so great. But Harriet kind of shoots that in the foot, saying that, well, we're not really friends. We're co-workers. We have each other's backs so we don't die, but friends, that's juvenile thoughts, which kind of harkens back to an issue of Teen Titans that I read one time. Well, no, not Teen Titans, just Titans. It was Dick Grayson as his team, and meeting up with Batman and his team, and you had the juxtaposition, whereas the Justice League, they're co-workers. They have each other's back, make sure they don't die, but they're not really friends per se. Some of them are friends with each other, but not so much. And you get that sense even when you watch some of the Justice League cartoons. Not really friends. They didn't come together because they particularly love being around each other. Hell, most people don't really like Batman. But in terms of the Titans, it's just like, no, they're friends. They came to be together because they enjoy each other's company and they work well together, which I don't feel is mutually exclusive. That should never really be the dividing point in terms of that. You can be friends with your coworkers. It just it's shaky for the most part. But you also kind of got to understand that Team Rwby wasn't really brought together because they were friends from the get go. So, that's also something to kind of take into account. But a very interesting conversation here. And Team Rwby's kind of disheartened by this for the most part, which is understandable. It's made to seem like they shouldn't be friends with if they're working together. Like that gets in the way of something, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. You can be friends. It's fine. Rwby tries to lift her team's spirits by saying they should go sightseeing, but they're tired. They've been traipsing around an entire continent only to arrive at another continent by plane. They're tired, they want to go home and rest. Meanwhile, General Ironwood has a meeting with John, Rwby, and Crow, talking about the fact that various different members who speak out against Ironwood, members of the public who speak out against Ironwood, have been found dead. I think he says this is up to 3 or 5 at this point, showing off the picture of Forrest, the guy who John notices they were riding in the police cruiser with. We saw him get ended at the end of last episode by Tyrion, which they're not aware of. But there's obviously a conspiracy at foot to discredit Ironwood. A few people here and there is one thing, but now it's starting to look like a pattern, and that Ironwood is taking out all who opposes him. So he asks for Team Rwby Jr. and Crow's help in order to suss this out and hopefully just lift the people's spirits up a little bit. If nothing else, his reputation is one thing, but to be framed for something he's not doing, and with the unrest going on in Atlas and Mantle and all that, nah, it's not great. So he feels that the new teams will hopefully stir up some better emotions within the populace. Unfortunately, there's an unwelcome visitor as well, namely Jacques Snee, Weiss's father. And Jacques, or Jacques, I'm just going to call him Jacques for short. Jacques is kind of down on Ironwood, feeling like he's overstepping his boundaries by occupying a Schnee property. However, because of the operation that they are starting, this is now a military property because of the fact that the council voted on it, specifically because of what Ironwood is trying to do. So he basically tells off Jacques. And Jacques is just really down on Ironwood. He's just like, once I get that seat on the council, your ass is going to be 6 feet deep. So it really just goes to show that, we didn't really deal with too much of the political realm earlier on in the series, but we've kind of grown towards that. Now is really the time because now you're dealing with politics, forces, help that could actually be used against Salem and her forces. And, Jacques could very much get in the way of all that, especially if he rises to power. Definitely would not be a good thing, all things considered. But, Jacques is kind of stopped dead in his tracks when he notices Weiss, and they have a little bit of a heart-to-heart, as Jacques feels very slighted that Ironwood would conscript his own daughter, his missing runaway daughter at that, into his plans. But Weiss says that he no longer has any control of her and her life. She does her own thing. He can butt the fuck out. And then Jacques does something really scummy, and that's bring up Weiss's mother and how heartbroken she was that her daughter had left yet again. She was stricken with so much worry, and it's just like, man, for a guy wearing all white, you really are just brown as shit, ain't ya? What a dick. But her friends have her back. They gather around her. It's pretty obvious that Rwby, Blake, and Yang are kind of taken aback because they have such good dads that seeing someone just be so shitty to their father, it's just like, wow, huh? That's the balance of things. You get two amazing dads and just one really shitty one. So Jacques kind of fucks off saying that he's got enough to hang Ironwood at this point, but he ain't got shit. He really does not. But winter arrives as is on cue, because it's pretty damn apparent there's no love lost between her and her father. She wants nothing to do with the man. But Penny shows up congratulating our teams on something momentous. As everyone heads up to the Amity Coliseum, Ironwood gives an impassioned speech and declares that they are all now full-fledged huntsmen. Yes, that thing that was basically long since forgotten since the beginning of that was so important at the beginning of the series, the whole tuning exam as thing, the hunter's license and all that good stuff. That thing that they wanted originally has been given to them. But at this point it's kind of almost trivial, as a lot of them ultimately say. It's just like, yeah, we wanted this for a long time, but with everything that's happened, it's just kind of like, oh, all right. But, at least with this, there's no longer that whole, oh, they're juniors. They're not really huntsmen yet. It's just like Ironwood said himself, with everything that they've been through, it's just like, yeah, you might as well be huntsmen and huntswomen. You're trustworthy, you've been through the ringer, you survived things that most people wouldn't normally be able to survive, that most huntsmen, licensed huntsmen, wouldn't be able to survive, yet we're just gonna give you your licenses and just call it a day for the most part. And it's just like, yeah, it's kind of like with Naruto in his series. He was going on Jonin level missions and became Hokage, having never be gone from Genin. He never became more than Genin and immediately jumped to Hokage. It's just like it's a trivial issue at this point, but it's just like it's kind of worth noting because it's just like, he's long since surpassed Genin. You might as well just bump him up as a formality. But Crow is just like, look, guys, I get it, but you earned this. Just celebrate a little, live a little. So everyone does just that. Everyone except Rwby, who has a heart to heart with Crow about the fact that she's kind of lost. Lying to Ironwood seemed to be the right thing to do at the moment. Uh, Getting her license kind of feels a little bit weird. Just everything. She's the leader, but it's just like she's had to do so much. She's starting to wonder, is she any better than Ozpin? But Crow lets her know, it's just like, look, Oz didn't tell anyone, even his most closest compatriots, about anything going on. At least you've let your friends know. You were determined to let your closest allies know things. And that's what separates you from Ozpin. You're actually trying to let the people you feel you can trust know what they need to know. Years of living made Ozpin cold to that idea. But with this, maybe something better can come from this. And they even talk about Ruby's mother, Summer. Winter, summer. And the fact that, ultimately, you know, everything going on with Summer, while it ultimately he reveals that Oz seemed to be just as surprised about what happened to Summer as everyone else. Ultimately, she had her own secrets as well, but she probably would have been just like Rwby in terms of all of this, just doing what she felt was right. And I love this little heart to heart they have. It's very pure, it's very nice, and it shows that while with everything that has happened, Rwby still can trust her Uncle Crow. He'll always be there for her, and I love this moment. It's extremely sweet. But Rwby sees the huntsman job board, which gives me flashbacks to Fairy Tale, and it's just like she sees all of the various different missions they could possibly go on. A few members of the Ace operatives show up, namely Elm, Vine, and Marrow, and they talk things over with the kids about the fact that it's just like, yes, the board is cool, you can grow and develop your skills, but still remember why we're here, what the main objective overall is. But they shout out some missions. John ends up getting conscripted into a mission to escort some kids, basically, and keep parents from worrying since there'll be a huntsman on duty, while everyone else gets wrapped up in a mission to basically just kind of, go underground and fight off some monsters. But the real meat comes at the end of the episode, and that's when Arthur Watts shows up to Jacques Schnee's abode to discuss a few things, and we find out some interesting things, namely that Arthur had long since been thought dead, which is why nobody would think that he would be out there causing mischief with coding from Atlas. And ultimately, Arthur hasn't come here for a courtesy call. He's here to discuss business, namely that he knows that Jacques is after taking down Ironwood. And Arthur feels that he can help Jock out with this little thing. That is, if you know, there's a little bit of give and take for this, a little bit of quid pro quo. A nice, interesting ending to this episode, especially because it's essentially Goku talking to Lord Beerus. Their voice actors, Christopher Sabat and, what was it? Jason something or other. uh, Completely blanking on Jacques Schnee's voice actor, but Christopher Sabat and the voice of Lord Beerus and all that. It's just like Vegeta talking to Beerus. It's very good. They're great voice actors, fantastic. It's really just a great conversation, but very, very deep, interesting, and I'm excited to see where this goes. The new Amity Arena or Coliseum, I'm not sure if it'll be used the way that the original one was. Probably not. We're probably not going to see any cool showdowns here, but a nice little bit of a callback to all that time ago. It's just a little bit of nostalgia. And the growth to Huntsman, while it wasn't really important, it also was kind of important because it shows how far they've come. To the point where something that was so big originally is kind of an afterthought. Like, oh yeah, we wanted to become huntsmen. That was a thing. Um, but the Ace operatives, continue to be kind of cool. I'm still kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop where we find out they're villains. But we'll see. They seem really cool, and they have really cool designs. For the most part, they seem pretty awesome. But jeez, Jacques is still a piece of shit. Like at every turn, he turns out to be just more and more terrible, just more and more of an awful person. And I hope he gets his comeuppance in the end. I can't wait to see that. But what is Jacques's plan with Arthur? What is Arthur after? What is he trying to do essentially? Stir up some trouble so that Salem can begin her attack? We'll just have to wait and see. But that completes this episode. If you liked this video, leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. That way you never miss out on another Rwby episode review. And I hope you will join me in the next episode of Rwby. Until then, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.